Hey everyone, welcome to another week of the Video Vantage podcast. My name is Haley and I'm joined by my co host Mike. And this week we're talking all about walking meetings and how they can improve your productivity at work. Mike, thanks for joining me for another week.
Thanks, Haley. Good to see you.
So, I think this one we don't really need to define what a walking meeting is because the name itself is pretty self explanatory.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what are your general thoughts on walking meetings? Are you a fan or would you prefer a meeting at a desk?
If I was given the choice, I would take a walking meeting, right?
Agreed.
My only caveat to that is I think I've done walking meetings with people in person, which is how I first got introduced to them
Yep.
years ago. And then I've tried to do walking meetings with remote colleagues, and I much prefer the walking meetings in person.
I completely agree. They feel a lot more natural.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, like when I walk, you know, going for a walk by myself, which what it looks like in these walking meetings that are remote,
Yep.
I'm either like just talking about something randomly to nobody, right?
Yep.
But it just feels different. And then invariably something will happen, which we might talk about a little bit from technology standpoint. But I do enjoy them in general.
Yep.
Um, I find them just much more engaging, more refreshing. And I don't know, how about you?
I completely agree. I think if it's a meeting that I don't need to be focused on an agenda or looking at my screen or following along with anything, I love to take a walking meeting. I will say my biggest problem with them is just simply where I live. We
Mm,
are not the most prone to having perfect weather like you are in California. So we have some pretty rainy winters. But I
yeah.
mean, that's nothing that like an under the desk little treadmill can't fix.
Hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, that's true.
Now, you mentioned technology kind of getting in the way of these remote walking meetings. And I know you and I tried one, I think it was probably last year, and
Yeah.
we couldn't quite get connected over Zoom on our phones, and it was kind of grainy. I think we ended up just calling each other like on a regular cell phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
phone, yeah.
Have you ever had any other kind of technology glitches when it comes to walking meetings?
Yeah, so like I used to rent an office in this other part of town here,
Yes.
and which was great because like it was literally like 3 minutes walking, and I'm at the beach, right? And I'm walking on the boardwalk, and it was fantastic. It was like if I'm just going out for a walk to clear my head, it's amazing.
Yep.
But like between that office space and getting to the beach, like is like this dead zone. And so like I would call somebody from my office, start walking, and then it would just invariably cut out. And
Yep.
so may seem really obvious, right? But if you're gonna do those walking meetings, I think you really have to make sure that you've got a good signal, or I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like I've always, sometimes I have these issues where like transitioning from Wi-Fi to cellular service, depending on your mode of communication, whether it's Zoom or Google Meet or just whatever, it can glitch out, it feels like. So,
Absolutely. Yep.
I think that the lesson that I've learned is like don't start the call until you're in a place where like you think you're going to have a consistent signal,
I love
however
that.
that's going to
Yep.
be. So maybe it may seem obvious, but I think it's important to call out.
I think it is a perfect call out 'cause, yeah, or often even if you're working in an office, but you're taking a remote walking meeting, if you have to get in an elevator or a stairwell, those are often dead zones too, so it's kinda just like that awkward, like, "Oh, I lost them, can't do anything about it," and sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't come back, and yeah, it can kinda be
Yeah.
a whole mess.
Yeah. I think that's what happened to us when we tried to like I left my house, started walking my neighborhood, and I lost it. And then like there are parts of my neighborhood that like the coverage is great, and there's other
Totally.
parts where it's all iffy and sketchy, and so
Yeah.
you just never know.
Absolutely, and I think for that call, it was one of those things where I actually didn't even go for a walk, but I took it without a screen, and I was just sitting on the patio, which is kind of a nice alternative if you're not actually feeling like walking, but just getting outside and being in the fresh air. Kinda did the same thing for me.
Yeah, and I think, one of the benefits that I find of a walking meeting, even if to your point, let's just say like maybe you can't go walk for whatever reason, right? Because of the spotty coverage or whatever, right? But just even sitting outside without a computer,
Yeah.
I think is a great alternative because look, I'll be the first to admit when I'm in a meeting and if I'm not the one who is being asked a question, or I'm not asking a question. I'm trying to think. It's a group of maybe 5 or 10 people. I'm going to lose focus.
Yep.
I will look at another screen on my laptop or my monitor. I'll get distracted, and then I'm not contributing to the meeting, which is bad, right? But I'll admit that
Absolutely.
I've done that, and I do it still, right?
We've all done it. Yeah.
And so, like, having that walking meeting, if you don't need to like answer a question where you have to pull some data up, whatever, or just sitting on your back patio or whatever in the sun and just having the conversation, I think is a great alternative.
Completely agree. I feel like it does a lot for your creativity too, because you're kind of getting out of your normal working space. You're putting yourself in a different environment. The
Yeah.
exercise on its own can kind of help to make you feel refreshed. And if you're in the sun, that also contributes. So I feel like there's quite a few benefits that you can find from a walking meeting.
I think there's so many. And also, I think it also lends itself to a less formal conversation typically,
Totally. Yep.
in my experience anyway. And so it's a different way to kind of build that relationship either with an individual or a small group. So I think that's important.
I completely agree. And do you have any favorite pieces of technology? Maybe it's headphones or tools on your phone that you like to use to kind of help with your walking meetings?
Yeah, for me, it's just it's pretty straightforward and simple. I just put my AirPods in and
Yep.
just have a headset um, uh, to do it that way.
Yeah, very
How about
straightforward. I
you?
like it. I kind of switch between I have over the ear headphones that I'll
Mhm.
use. Those are pretty good, but honestly, sometimes I just do it like a normal phone call, hold the phone up to my ear in the old-fashioned way, but
Yeah, yeah,
obviously that's not the most comfortable way to go about it, but sometimes it works just fine.
yeah. Do you have you ever found yourself needing to take notes or anything like that while you're in a walking meeting?
Not really, but I feel like if I did need to take notes, I always love to text myself if it's a reminder, or I'll just kind of head to the notes app within my phone, Apple Notes, and kind of
Mhm.
jot something quickly down there. And then once I'm back on my computer, I'll turn it into something more official, whether it's in Notion or Google Calendar, whatever it may be. So I feel like there's quick ways to do that on the phone. But what about you? Have you ever run into that?
Yeah, I ran it a couple times and I had to like stop myself, and then I just went into Slack and just slacked myself a message
Smart.
type of a thing. But
Yep.
um, for me, I tried to like time it so that the end of my, I do it all the time, but when I've done it, I try to time my walk so that I get back to my office right when or my desk when the meeting's over,
Yep.
and then write stuff down really quick because I
Totally.
don't find myself like I was reading some stuff in kind of preparation for this topic, and one of the things is like people said like, oh, use Apple Voice Memos app or the equivalent on Android to record the whole meeting, and I'm like, I'm never going to go back and listen to a 30-minute
Uh,
voice
never.
recording, never, right? Not to mention like making sure that the person's okay with it being recorded and all that stuff. But so for me, I just try to like write things down immediately when I get back to my desk.
Totally. I think that's a great way to go about it. And I feel like now with technology and there's kind of an app for everything, I feel like it's pretty easy to make note of that stuff on the go. And like you said, once you're back at the office, turn it into something real.
Yeah. Now I have seen, I can't remember the name of it, but I'll have to look it up again. But there was an app that I saw that's AI based that says it will intercept the audio from your like Zoom call, for example,
Yep.
and it won't record it, but it will
Okay.
transcribe it and then take notes and summarize it. And then
Ah,
they say they delete the audio recording afterwards. So like so then they're technically saying like, oh, you don't have to have like this, like if you live in California, you have to disclose that you're being recorded because they're not recording it.
right.
That's what they say, but it's a note taking system. So like maybe I should try that one time because that'd be interesting.
That's
Like if it took
interesting.
the notes for me, I could just scan them and read them. That could be
Totally. I feel like I
interesting.
shouldn't be surprised that there's an AI tool for that at this point. It kind of sounds similar to one that I've seen before called TLDV. I'm not sure if it's the same one or if they have that functionality, but it is the same kind of like AI meeting. I think they may record it, but they do transcribe and kind of pull out those little tidbits of information. So maybe a
Interesting.
similar.
When you've done a walking meeting before, do you find like there's a certain time of day that you prefer to do them in?
I'm pretty flexible. I will say I tend to structure mine around what the weather's looking like outside, as I
Yeah,
said,
that's
because it can
fair.
change pretty quickly here. So it's one of those things where if I have a meeting in the afternoon and I know I don't need to be in my computer and the weather's looking good, then I'll get out. But really, any time of day I think is great. I do love a midday break, though, just to kind of break up your workday and
Yeah.
reset, and then you feel refreshed in the afternoon. Do you have a preference?
I was thinking that what you just said, the latter part of what you said, where like the morning time I try to reserve that time for like the work that I have to do, right? With the
Yep,
thinking stuff they have to go through and the planning and if you're trying to implement something. Afternoons after lunch, invariably I kind of need a break to kind of like prevent falling asleep. Sometimes those that post lunch nap feeling, right, that you get,
totally.
your urge you get. And so having that walking meeting for me in the afternoon is better, or even just going for a walk is
Yep.
better for me than like having like a seventh cup of coffee type of thing, you know.
That's very fair. And do you have any tips on how people can make sure their walking meeting is a success?
Yeah, the things that have worked for me, the times that I've done it, right? I
Yeah,
don't pretend to do it every single day or whatever, but the times that I've done it is like, make sure, your colleague or colleagues know that it's a walking meeting. So they're prepared like with the right shoes or clothing, whatever. Like if it's chilly, they want a sweater type of thing, right?
very fair.
Um, for me, I like to do it in the afternoon. The other one I
Yep,
think is having a planned route, right? Because I think you still want to have some structure so that you don't find yourself like, oh, we're 45 minutes away and we have something going on, another meeting in 10 minutes type of a thing, right? So having a
absolutely. Yep.
having a planned route, I think, is always important.
Mhm.
Um, and then I prefer the walking meetings that I've had in the past are like one-on-ones. I
Yeah,
I don't
I
like
agree.
having like, a big group, but I would say if you're gonna have a group of people, I would definitely keep it to like 3 or 4 people max, because otherwise I think it's just you're opening yourself up for not having any of that productive meeting or that creativity that you're looking for.
I completely agree. I feel like more than 3 people, it becomes kind of hard to participate, and you're gonna end up losing people who are more focused on their walk than they are on the meeting.
Yeah.
One-on-one, I think by far is the best, and that's kind of most of the walking meetings that I've joined in on have been our one-on-ones, but it's just so much easier, and I love the tip about having the pre-planned route. I think for a few reasons. One, so you don't end up, like you said, far away from home and then having to go all the way back. But also, it's just kind of one less thing that you don't have to think about on the call. So if you know what street you're going to turn on ahead of time and you know this whole little square that you've got mapped out, then you can really just focus on, I don't know, taking everything in around you, focusing on the call. You don't have to worry about navigating at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it also just makes sure that everybody, like maybe it's just one other person, but like, that other person is comfortable. Like they know exactly what's going to happen. We're going to take this
Totally.
route. We're going to get to this
Yeah,
place. We're going to turn around, and I think it's just some of that psychological safety, right? That
absolutely.
you talk about in work. And it's like just when there's no surprises, you know what's going on. You just,
Yes.
you're more productive that way.
Yep, and kind of that decision fatigue too. You don't have to make all of those decisions, so you can save them for something better.
Oh, yeah. I've been there before.
Same. I think that's the perfect way for us to end off this week's episode. So, thanks, Mike, for joining me. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. We have an exciting topic next week. We're talking about Taylor Swift and how she can impact your workplace culture. So, we'll see you next week.
Can't
Thanks,
wait.
Mike.
Thanks, Haley.